The rain stung Elias's face as he sprinted through San Francisco's neon-lit streets, heart pounding louder than the storm. He clutched the pregnancy test, its two pink lines burning into his memory like a brand. How had one reckless night with Julian Voss, the untouchable pop star, turned his invisible life into this impossible chaos? Elias was a beta ordinary, unremarkable, the kind of guy who faded into coffee shop crowds. At 28, he worked as a barista in the Mission District, pouring lattes for tech bros and dreamers. His life a quiet rhythm of routine. He wasn't an alpha, with their commanding presence, or an omega, with their magnetic allure. Just a beta, unnoticed, until that night 3 months ago at the Velvet Room, a dimly lit club where Julian's orbit had collided with his. It was a charity concert, and Elias had been roped in to serve drinks backstage. Julian, 32, was everything the tabloids promised: jet black hair, piercing blue eyes, and a voice that could unravel souls. He was an alpha, a global sensation whose every move sparked headlines. That night, he'd been magnetic, laughing with the crew, his charisma filling the room like smoke. Elias, invisible in his black apron, had handed Julian a whiskey, their fingers brushing. A spark electric. Reckless had ignited something neither expected. They'd ended up in a private booth, the world fading as Julian's laughter softened into whispers. One drink became 3, then a blur of stolen kisses in a dark corner. And finally, a hotel room where boundaries dissolved. Elias hadn't known male betas could conceive it was rare. A genetic fluke. 1 in a million. But now, here he was, alone in the rain, the test in his pocket screaming a truth he couldn't face. He hadn't meant to disappear. But Julian was a star. Untouchable. His life a whirlwind of tours and paparazzi. Elias was nobody. A beta with nothing to offer but a secret that could ruin them both. So he'd packed a bag, quit his job, and caught a bus to Portland, leaving no trace. He'd vanished, hoping to protect them both from the fallout. In Portland, Elias found a cheap studio apartment above a bookstore, its creaky floors and musty shelves a far cry from San Francisco's buzz. He took a job at a diner, serving pancakes to truckers and students, his days blurring into a haze of survival. The pregnancy was a quiet secret, hidden under baggy sweaters, but it grew heavier with every passing week. At night, he'd lie awake, replaying that night with Julian, a warmth of his touch, the way his eyes had softened, unguarded for once. Was it real? Or just a fleeting thrill for a star slumming it with a nobody? Back in San Francisco, Julian was spiraling. The night with Elias had been a crack in his polished facade, a moment of raw connection he hadn't felt in years. He'd woken up alone in that hotel room, Elias's absence a punch to the gut. He'd tried to find him, called the club, scoured social media, even hired a private investigator, but Elias had vanished like a ghost. Julian's life was a cage of fame, every move watched, every scandal magnified. Yet, in quiet moments, he'd traced the memory of Elias's shy smile, wondering why it haunted him so fiercely. Elias's new life in Portland was fragile, but he was building something until the day he saw Julian's face on a diner TV. A breaking news headline: Julian Voss cancels tour amid personal crisis. The reporters speculated about burnout, but Julian's hollow eyes told a different story. Guilt twisted in Elias's chest. Had he caused this? He turned off the TV, hands trembling, and went back to wiping counters. But the image lingered. Weeks later, a stranger walked into the diner. She was sharp-eyed, dressed in a sleek blazer, and carried a folder stamped with a private investigator's logo. "Elias Carter?" she asked, voice low. His heart stopped. She slid a photo across the counter, a blurry shot of him and Julian at the Velvet Room, laughing, their hands brushing. "Julian Voss is looking for you," she said. "He's not giving up." Panic surged through Elias. He mumbled an excuse, grabbed his coat, and fled into the rainy Portland streets. He couldn't face Julian, not now, not with the truth growing inside him. But as he ran, memories flooded back, Julian's voice, soft and earnest, saying, "You're not like anyone I've ever met." Elias had laughed it off, but now those words felt like a lifeline he'd let slip away. He stopped under a street lamp, breath ragged, and pulled out his phone. No messages, no missed calls, just silence. He could keep running, disappear again, maybe to Seattle or beyond. But the weight of the secret, the child, and the man he couldn't forget anchored him. What if Julian deserved to know? What if this wasn't just about protecting himself? Elias didn't sleep that night. He sat at his tiny kitchen table, the pregnancy test beside a half-empty coffee mug, and wrote a letter he wasn't sure he'd send. "Julian," it began, "I'm sorry I ran. There's something you need to know." The words poured out, raw and unfiltered, a confession of fear, hope, and a love he hadn't dared name. He sealed the envelope but didn't send it. Not yet. In San Francisco, Julian was unraveling. His manager begged him to get back on stage, but he couldn't shake the emptiness. He'd always been the alpha, the one in control, but Elias had undone him. Late one night, his investigator called with a lead, a diner in Portland, a guy matching Elias's description. Julian didn't hesitate. He booked a flight. No entourage, no cameras, just him, chasing a ghost. Portland's drizzle greeted Julian as he stepped off the plane. He wore a hoodie, sunglasses, anything to blend in, but his heart raced with a mix of hope and dread. The diner was small, unassuming, the kind of place he'd never noticed in his old life. He pushed open the door, the bell jingling, and scanned the room. Elias was there, behind the counter, wiping a glass, his face pale but unmistakable. Their eyes met, and time stopped. Elias froze, the glass slipping from his hand, shattering on the floor. Julian crossed the room in 3 strides, ignoring the stares of the other customers. "Why did you run?" he asked, voice raw, barely above a whisper. Elias opened his mouth, but no words came. The truth was too big, too fragile. "I'm pregnant," Elias finally said, the words barely audible. His eyes locked on Julian's. The diner fell silent, the air thick with shock. Julian's face softened, not with anger, but with something deeper: relief, fear, and a flicker of hope. "You should have told me," he said, stepping closer, his hand reaching for Elias's. "We could have faced this together." Elias pulled back, shaking his head. "You're Julian Voss. You don't need this mess." But Julian didn't move, his gaze steady. "I don't care about the mess," he said. "I care about you." The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows. But in that moment, it was just them. Elias's walls crumbled, tears spilling as he let Julian pull him into an embrace. The other customers whispered, phones discreetly snapping photos. But neither cared. For the first time, Elias felt seen, not as a beta, not as a nobody, but as someone who mattered. They left the diner, walking into the Portland night, the rain a soft curtain around them. Julian didn't have answers, and Elias didn't have a plan. But they had a fragile, reckless beginning. The world would come for them: paparazzi, headlines, judgment, but for now, they had each other. The next weeks were a whirlwind. Julian rented a small apartment in Portland, away from the spotlight, and they navigated the impossible together. Elias's pregnancy was a secret they guarded fiercely, but whispers spread. A tabloid caught wind, publishing a grainy photo of them holding hands in a park. The headline screamed, "Julian Voss's secret lover. Who is he?" Elias panicked, but Julian just laughed, tossing the paper aside. "Let them talk," he said. "I'm done hiding." Elias wasn't so sure. He'd spent his life blending in, and now the world's eyes were on him. Strangers stared at the diner, and his boss started asking questions. But Julian was relentless, showing up every day, helping with groceries, cracking terrible jokes to make Elias smile. Slowly, Elias began to believe this could work, not just a fling, but something real. One night, under the stars in a quiet park, Julian took Elias's hand. "I don't know how to be a dad," he admitted, voice low, "but I want to try. With you." Elias's heart ached, torn between fear and hope. He thought of the letter he'd never sent, now tucked in a drawer, and realized he didn't need to run anymore. The pregnancy progressed, and so did their bond. They argued about fame, about fear, about the future, but they always came back to each other. Julian started writing songs again, softer ones, inspired by Elias's quiet strength. Elias found courage he didn't know he had, standing up to the world's scrutiny, claiming his place beside Julian. When their son was born, in a small Portland hospital, the world felt impossibly still. Julian held the baby, tears in his eyes, while Elias watched, exhausted but whole. They named him Noah, a name that felt like a promise. The tabloids went wild, but the noise didn't matter. They'd built something stronger, a family. Imperfect, but theirs. Years later, Elias would tell Noah the story of that reckless night, the rain-soaked escape, and the love that found them anyway. Julian, no longer touring but teaching music to kids, would laugh and add his own details, his hand always finding Elias's. They weren't perfect, but they were proof that even a nobody could change a star's orbit, and that love, when it's real, doesn't let you disappear.